We're live, but I just lost my camera. 1 second. Of course. Right, there we go. We're back. So we should be live. I already see 12 people here. Awesome. Let us know real quick. Make sure that you can hear us. This is the first time where we're doing a stream with 2 people in the same room as well. So I don't know if our microphone is quite set up as good as it could be. It should be fine. I did some tests yesterday.
Great.
But if anyone in the chat wants to let us know that you can hear me and maybe you can hear Joe. You want to say something real quick?
Cool. Hello, testing. Mic check. 1, 2.
And we'll wait just a few more seconds probably before we really start going into the planned questions around large language models in production. Mm-hmm. How's your day going so far?
Pretty good. Very good.
And Joe did a really cool meetup last night, which was awesome. So that was great.
Thanks. Mm-hmm. Great. Glad you enjoyed.
Awesome. I'll get started real quick with a couple notes. This is welcome everyone to the Robust and Responsible AI event. You can kind of think of this one almost as like a live podcast. It's just like conversation. There's no slides or live demo or anything like that. Unless you really want to show something, we could make it happen. And if you ever want to come in and talk about anything, let me know. And you can also connect with us in Slack, which is in the description below. Also linked to all of Joe's social content. I think anywhere to follow him or see the work he's working on is also in the description below as well. And with that, we can get started. But before we really get into the large language models, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Joe?
Sure.
And let us know an overview, maybe a little bit about your background. I know it's super interesting. Sure. And maybe how you became interested in the data and ML space.
Sure. Well, my background is in the tech geek, computer science undergrad major. Grew up in a household that was computer geeks before. I'm old enough where, if you had a computer at home, you were the oddball, when I was in elementary schools. And my parents, we had a Lisa at our house, just to give you an idea where I came from, which is kind of crazy. People go, what's a Lisa?
The old Apple, right?
The thing before the Mac?
Yeah.
That had a GUI? Yeah, that you've read about? We had one in our house. Kind of crazy. So I kind of grew up with all these new gadgets and technologies, and laser printer. The first one I ever saw was at our house, and really exposed to that. My parents were both programmers. So, of course, I was a programmer. That was the only thing I was going to do in college. And it was super fun tinkering and building from an early age. And done that, managed to do that my whole life. My career as an entrepreneur, my joke is that it's the French word for dubious career path. But it has led me to many adventures and some success. And so I'm happy to be able to continue to do it. And, in terms of the ML leading into that world, I think the really cool thing is, after all these years, to feel like you've woken up one morning and reached into the toolbox and there's a magic wand in there. And it's just absolutely mind-blowing and amazing what these new innovations and thresholds we've crossed with large language models and generative have enabled you to kind of feel like, wow, I can now solve a bunch of problems that I've trained myself to not even think about because it's too hard. I can now dive in and go do that. And so it's a super exciting time. But yeah, my journey, starting companies and a bunch of that stuff along the way, has been a big part of it. So my last company is still going. I'm still involved. I'm actually doing a live stream later today. CrowdCow is an online e-commerce company with, lots of revenue and lots of customers. And I was the founder and CEO for about 8 years of that. Now it's got a great CEO and I'm on the board. But it was connecting consumers with small farms and ethically raised delicious meat from around the country and around the world, doing that online and making it convenient.
That's awesome. And I think I saw a quote from you about your friend ordered a cow or something. And you wanted a cow and he wouldn't share.
Yeah. And at the time, people ask all the time, well, how is that a technology thing? We were like, well, the fact is there's a huge market opportunity. This has got to go back 10 years ago, right? Or almost 10 years, where people do care about where people want variety, they want quality, they want to be in control, they want all that rich information that comes with it with any purchase. And so, if you're at the grocery store, you get that with beer and wine and chocolate and cheese and all these categories that are important to us. I'm old enough to remember when those categories were boring commodity. So the irony is you walk through the grocery store past those aisles to get to the meat counter, and that person can't even tell you what country it came from.
Mm-hmm.
And we just thought, well, to solve this, it would be using the internet medium, right? Storytelling, video. And I want the convenience of click and show up. And it was one of the categories that wasn't online at all when we started. So very difficult to even purchase online at all. So this is a huge opportunity, kind of laying in plain sight. And of course, it's got a supply chain logistics part that's unknown to us as entrepreneurs. But the key that's going to unlock it is the technology and orchestrating that supply chain. And it's ambitious. Let's go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you were saying it kind of feels like you can reach into a toolbox and have a magic wand.
Mm-hmm.
Does it kind of feel like there's a new magic wand every day now?
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest challenges is that it's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
I had a process for a while. It's broken down where, throughout the week I would capture things I want to read or follow up on and put them in a file. And the weekend I would triage, and then not even get through 10% of them. And that's not even touching the list of here's things I actually want to download, install, and play with.
Yeah.
I would imagine that if you took interesting open source projects related to generative AI or LLMs that have more than 50 stars in the last week or two, and said, I'm just going to try those, that's a full-time job. I don't know how you even get to it.
I think you're totally right.
Triage is difficult.
All right, so we'll jump into some of the large language model topics. Most people watching today might have been introduced to LLMs in some manner, probably now. Like most people watching, maybe not everyone in the world. I think our AI bubble's expanded quite a bit of use, but it's still probably a small percentage of people. But a lot of them probably got introduced with ChatGPT first. And I think I remember talking to you, I think almost like a year ago exactly at an AI meetup or barbecue, and you were already super interested in the world of LLMs, and it kind of felt like you had a sense of what everything that was about to come a few months later.
I had a sense of, well, to be honest, I had a sense of urgency 3 years ago about this. I couldn't talk about it. I had a full-time job, and I was like, this is inappropriate for me to go experiment and talk about because it's so different from what I'm working on. But I was already almost exactly 3 years ago sort of convinced. I think I do have a nose for what's a new emerging thing, and I love tinkering and playing. So, but this one was just so obvious. So, my introduction was getting in on the private beta GPT-3, and where I was the only person I knew for months who had access.
Oh, wow.
Months. This was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So July 2020.
Wow.
Okay. And the reason I even had that was because I had been going to the UW Computer Science Department PhD symposiums for the last 10 years and noticing that at the cutting edge PhD level, everyone was mixing in ML with everything. So whether it was databases or, human factors, whatever it was my PhD thesis is that plus ML. And so I was watching that, and then I was watching sort of the architectures that are simpler but more powerful come into the benchmarks and beat things. And this was, going back to 2015 or 16, 17, and just realizing, wow, there's something really big there. I need to go study up. So I took the Coursera ML class,
the classic Andrewing one. That's awesome.
I think in 2018 or 2019. This is the side project while working at my e-commerce company, but just sort of, I need to tool up. I need to stay relevant. This is clearly big. And then when GPT-2 was, you could play with it, GPT-2, and it was like talking to an insane person. Crazy, but something really special about that too.
Yeah.
And so when the rumors of GPT-3 were there and how it was crossing the threshold of intelligence, I was like, I got to get in on this. And then it was like announced that it would be in private beta. I was so ready with my, I got Greg's email address. I've got the perfect cold email. I'm getting access here. And I got access, and so it was just like, so from that moment, it was really like, you have to remember, for those of you who've been dabbling long enough, you remember before instruct tuning, it was difficult to get good results from GPT-3 without a lot of prompt engineering and K-shot prompting with lots of examples. And I mean, getting it to do any JSON is easy now, but getting it to do JSON back then was pretty hard. It was half the time broken or wrong, or but if you did K-shots, you could get it to work great. And just, so I look at my old prompts from 3 years ago, and they're really super long with tons and tons of examples, and then my little instruction, but my magic moments came very early through that nights and weekends tinkering, and just being amazed right away. Like some of the first things I built a calorie app. I later launched it as an app and tried to, use it in my life, but I built a little demo web page app where I could imagine a prompt where lots and lots of case shots of like a food item, and then the calorie count, a description of how healthy it is or whatever it's good for you, and just imagine 1 million of those, and then combinations like 2 or more, and like some popular foods, Happy Meal, whatever, right? And getting that, and then going like, okay, now I'm going to give it a new one that's not in the example set, and then having it return an answer, and then looking it up online and going, oh my God, that's accurate. So feeling like this is like, I have this thing that's already crawled the internet, and I don't have to do all that work of data scraping, cleaning, whatever. In the past, if I want to build a calorie app, I'd have to do so much data work to get the data, clean it, use it, store it in a database, make it, all that work goes away. In the space of like, I don't know, an hour, I just built a calorie app. And then I hooked it up to a Siri shortcut where I could do voice, that would do the voice to text.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And then I just call the hook and go to my app and return the voice response. And I was like, well, I just built a better calorie app in half a day than anything that's in the App Store, in a way, right?
Yeah.
Now, 80-20 rule, not really, because when it's wrong, it matters if you really are using a calorie app. And that last 20% is really hard. But it still doesn't, for me, negate the fact that in an afternoon, I built something that was a better user experience than really anything that I'd tried to download and use in my real life. That's impressive. That's amazing. Some other things were home automation. I have a bunch of stuff at my home for home, turning lights on and off and all that's very manual or very automated. It's digital, but it's very old school. And I was like, oh, I'll just make a voice interface for that. And so there I was playing around with just voice to, I just need JSON, and then I've got the APIs. So I'll just write a quick little wrapper that all it does is ingest my JSON and turn around and call my APIs. And I was like, that'll probably work. So I started case shots around, okay, what are things I want to ask? I want to ask, turn off the lights in the kitchen. I want to unlock the front door, play music in the den. And I gave all those case shots with my JSON. Then I implemented my wrapper. And then I go, the first test I did was turn off the kitchen lights and play music in the den. And it went and generated perfect JSON with an array. And I was like, what the hell? I didn't tell it to do that. So I was like, this is going to change everything, because that worked without I didn't have to inform it. And then I gave it commands I didn't have any. Open the windows in the garage, and it would go boop, and it would create the right syntax, the one that I would have used if I had that feature on my API. And I realized like, this is really, so that was within the first week or two doing these kind of prototypes and realizing like this will change the landscape of everything, software development and everything.
That is awesome.
And of course it's going to take a while and all that, but it's coming.
And you basically were putting stuff in production in a way back then with all your apps and everything. So
it's running on my web. At this point, it's funny. I still have the first commit I did was in June of 2020. I still have that same repo. I've just built over time more infrastructure to support every experiment I want to do or every app I want to launch, and so I can reuse all these components I built under the hood. It's fun.
That's awesome. And you talked about some really cool use cases that you've already been playing with since 2020, and actually deploying them out. Are there any other use cases that you're using LLMs for right now? I just saw you do a lot of cool stuff with it literally seconds ago. And it feels like you're you're using them in all sorts of ways to increase your productivity and do stuff that would take time otherwise.
I have big apps and small apps that I've written just for fun and for learning, and some of these have been useful in my life too, right? So, and then I have I try to, as much as possible, work in a kind of what I call AI native way, where if I have project work or anything I need to go do, I'm going to start with the sandbox and load context up and have it be my thought partner. Try not to do that on my own. Why bother, right? Maybe faster, probably better. So I try to do that as well. But in terms of useful things, the first thing I really built that was most useful was a prompt templating, a database where I could have a prompt stored with a name and variables. So that allows me to do prompt engineering and then store that. And then I can now recall it into a web UI and just type the variable substitutions, or I've also rep that as an API. So if I'm doing prompt engineering in a UI, I'm testing, I get my variables and I get my use cases, and then I'm done. That's automatically exposed on all of my apps as an API I can just call. So if I'm building an app that's going to use that behind the scenes, no problem. It's one call with those variables and a hash table done. And so that I use all the time for everything. Super useful. And all this has been, available now in LangChain and any other kit. It's very simple. Another is, and some of those I've wrapped into like the mega prompt, what I call is like, so a mega prompt for me is like get GPT-32K, load it up with like your entire bio, resume, LinkedIn, your company's elevator pitch, your brand style guides. And each of these is delimited by a header, just here's information. And at the end, you have your prompt, which is like, on behalf of that guy up there, write an email or whatever. So I say, on behalf of that guy, follow these instructions and then blank. And that blank is my single variable. So now I go to a web page that's internal, just I have access. And there's one called like AI Tinkerers Organizer, right? And it has all this stuff about AI Tinkerers that frequently ask questions is there, everything. And it just says, do something on behalf of the AI Tinkerers Organizer. And I'll just be like, okay, write an email announcing whatever. And it'll go, and it's pretty good, right? Because it has all that context. So that's another super useful one. Smaller ones, like you ever book travel and the last page is this HTML with all this crap on it. I just can copy and paste that from any airline or whatever. And then I have a template that I paste it into, and it says, take all that and reformat it into 2 lines, departure and arrival with an icon, all the information exactly how I want it. And that's the thing I can use, in my notepad file or whatever. Those are, I wrote a summarizer that I use all the time too, which there's a million of these and they're built into Bing now, but mine was fun because I built it. And, I wanted to learn query augmented retrieval. I wanted to learn recursive summarization. I wanted to do chat with your docs. So I built that. And over time, I've found it useful just to use it. And I've built more features. So I've built PDF ingestion, download YouTube videos, speech to text them, all that. And then I have slide output. So I'll boil everything. I take a 3-hour video from YouTube. It'll crunch a very long time recursively. And it builds this nice, here are the key points. Here's a longer summary. Here's a super short summary. Here's a really long. All of that's there, plus a slideshow I can just flip through.
That's awesome.
And I find it's kind of embarrassing to admit. A person who was using it asked me for the slideshow. And I said, I'll never use that. And then I use that all the time. My own usage of the app has gone up 10 times because of that one feature, embarrassingly. Because it turns out it's super useful to take a 3-hour video. I'm not going to watch that, but to get the 8-slide deck and get the key points, super useful.
Yeah, you do usually use that in like a learning application?
Absolutely. So it's this problem of information about how do I keep up? There's archive papers or PDF. That's why I added that, right? YouTube videos, and a lot of podcasts are on YouTube. So that's why I added that. And so it's absolutely for learning and keeping up with things. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I don't think you talked about it too much in your intro at the beginning, but you're using some cool language models in your current work as well. If you want to give a quick little, we'll dive deeper into it a little bit later, but a little bit about how that, what that's
a Blueprint AI?
Yes.
Yeah. So Blueprint AI is a startup that we incorporated in December and really got started on the journey. What we're looking at is, again, I look at generative AI and large language models as this new magic wand, but more specifically, it's almost like human reasoning as a component to software development. And what's interesting about that is humans can solve a lot of problems that computers couldn't. So now we can solve them with computers. But computers don't get tired. They can work 24/7. They can do a lot of stuff as an expert, but the grunt work that an expert doesn't want to do, right? And when you try to sort of outsource that or offshore or delegate it, it doesn't get done as well as you might do it. So I look at the language models as especially GPT-4, as a very educated expert with years of experience who's willing to do the grunt work, willing to look at every log file entry if you want them to, every day, all day long. So we're looking at Blueprint, we're looking at, given that ability, are there useful problems in the realm of software development itself or product development, where if you had that, it would transform things. And there are tons of opportunities there. So, for example, and I'm sure this will resonate with tons of people, the business tech divide is a huge one, right? Engineers are tasked with building the implementation of the requirement. Business people are tasked with specifying that based on business goals. So you got a business goal, you got a technical specification, you got an implementation. There's so much tension in there. And what is one thing that language models are great at? Translating between domains. So if you can take experts that don't speak each other's language and help them communicate better, it's extremely useful.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that tension is where innovation happens, where 10 times better products can emerge or 10 times faster ship schedules. And it's because you can say, well, like, just put a button on there. That's easy, right? No, that button is going to take a month, right? Knowing those trade-offs and being able to infer those faster in real time is extremely useful. So our idea, and that's just one of the problems. Another problem is within an organization, as you get further from like the daily stand-up, it's exponentially harder to understand even what's going on. And again, even if you could read the Git commits and release notes, if you're technical enough, who has time, right? So getting in there and doing that in an automated way and summarizing at the right cadence, alerting people when they need to know, hey, you need to get over here and help. These guys are ready for your check-in or your art or the dependency. Or, hey, that customer who really was begging for that thing, it's going to unlock revenue for us. That feature is now ready, real time, go. That level of technical product manager will do a great job of this, but not that specific case I just said. It's really important to you, but who's going to be able to pull that piece of information in real time and tap you on the shoulder right now?
Yeah,
only an AI can do that. So we're building a suite of AIs, I would say, that are able to do this. And in the process, they're going to empower a lot of those traditional roles on the team by removing a lot of that grunt work and allow people to focus on the more creative or strategic and do it 24/7 and faster. So it's going to be, that's kind of what we're doing.
I like your description too, of like using GPT-4 as an expert that's willing to do the grunt work.
Yeah.
Because you're saying it's so smart at stuff, but yeah, you can say, look at all these log files and it won't complain.
That's right.
Or anything like that.
Yeah. And I'm, constantly tinkering. The reason tinkering is such a big theme in right now and why I'm doing the meetup is because I think to discover the limits and what it's great at, you have to just play. And there's a great tweet yesterday from Lewis, who's actually running the AI Tinkers in London. And he published he said, hey, there's been a lot of people who now have access to Claude, which I do too, Claude 100K and GPT 32K. And there's a feeling when you're playing with it, like, I don't know, like I have this much longer context window, but it doesn't seem as good pound for pound. So he was like, hey, everybody, I've heard that. We experienced it too. I decided to do something about it. And he went and created a synthetic data set, finding a needle in a haystack, different size context windows, ran them systematically against regular GPT-4 plus all the way up to 32K in increments, plus Claude all the way up, and graphed it out in terms of successes and false positives, and showed it's true. Right around after 6,000 or 7,000 tokens, performance really degrades. And then after that point, Claude actually outperforms GPT-4.
Interesting.
So it's sort of like, that's a useful result just to confirm something that was intuitively learned.
Yeah.
Say, oh, it's real. And then be able to say, like, hey, maybe this is important enough. We shouldn't use long contexts. We should actually break our problems up, call the prompt,
right.
And time if it's important enough, or at least use Claude above a certain threshold.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. So, I think you need to do that. You need to be in the community testing and sharing results and being open. We all benefit from that. And that's a big piece of it. And as far as my kind of being AI native and starting with GPT-4 for long prompt stuff, it's part of it. It's like sometimes it does the work better than I can do. I'll be honest about that, Or if I delegate to an MBA with 5 years experience, do this thing, I delegate to GPT-4 and be like, I would have paid good money for that.
Yeah.
But it took 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So we need to embrace these things and understand where they can be used in all aspects of our work.
And I think that, or at least in my opinion, kind of maybe ties into our next question about a little bit about, well, at least like the learning aspect, like you're saying, like you find these really useful results. So you've been putting LLMs and stuff in production in various ways, whether that's in your home, on a phone app, with Blueprint AI. What are some tools you've maybe really enjoyed, or any challenges that have come to mind specific around LLMs? And maybe like, what is the hardest part right now about putting one of them in production, and like what would be a good takeaway for people watching?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the biggest problem right now, I think, is performance and speed and reliability. It's been shocking over the last year how slow things have gotten and how unreliable, and it's because the demand has come in, and but if you're trying to do, you know, rapid experimentation and prototyping for your startup to get traction, you know, this is a problem. Stuff, you know, on certain days, every fifth call is just timing out, and that's just unacceptable. Or stuff's taking. It was ironic. We got access to GPT-4 32K, which you'd think should be slower, and it was much faster. So all that talk about cost and, you know, oh my God, it's so much more expensive, we got to be careful about when we use it, went out the window. We're like, just use it for everything. It's faster. If your user's in front of it and you're trying to get traction or a result, it's faster, ironically, because nobody's using it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, probably, right? So it is for now,
Yeah,
and maybe
yeah.
that's gonna slow down when it becomes more available.
But that influences, you know, how you might think about where your workloads are. You know, hey, what can we offload and pre-compute so that the user experience is instant? Where can you use caching, you know, or approximate caches to get results instantly and don't go to the LLM? Yeah, I think this world of chaining and agents has exploded the usage of LLMs and caused the problem to some extent. It's not a good user experience to use some automated, you know, thing and look at it and go, I could do that faster manually.
Right.
And get frustrated. That's not a good experience. So you've got to implement streaming. If you're doing anything with users, you've got to implement that streaming. It's a huge psychological boost to your performance, and things like that. So lots of learnings there, and building systems to detect failure and try again or fall over and all that. It's actually really important for practical reasons right now. Other problems related to deployment. I think prompt engineering is this art and science, and it's still, I don't feel good about any solutions I've seen or anything I've built. You know, my process is in prototyping is do a lot of prompt engineering up front, do a more limited amount of systematic, you know, thinking about the range of inputs and making sure it works across them. But I'm doing that manually. Then I deploy.
Right.
And then I run into one of these cases where it's the 20% that's not so great.
Right.
And I'm gonna go back and tweak my prompt, and I'm wondering what did I just, you know, destroy in the other 80%?
Yeah.
And there isn't a great out of the box framework for detecting those regressions. And the problem is so open-ended, because if you look at my prompts for different applications, they vary anything from fairly trivial classification problems to like very creative open-ended analysis things. And how do you apply one framework that can monitor sort of quality regressions across all of them? I don't know. You know, I don't know that anyone has a solution. So you end up building tools to make it easier to run a lot in parallel and kind of eyeball it, right? For those things that are really squishy.
Yeah.
But I think it's a big problem. And I'm aware that, in fact, WhyLabs has solutions here in this realm. I'm starting this week to try them, actually.
Oh, nice. And I would love to hear your feedback.
Yeah,
when you do
sure.
That too.
And I'm aware of others that have built things homegrown. I will say this: we were running this project at Blueprint. We built some tools, anticipating this, you know, something you need to be good at. And I went to the June AI Tinkers meetup, which is all builders, right? We filter and screen for builders. And I said, who's, you know, got this problem? Everybody, you know, who's done anything about it? There were 2 hands in the whole room of like 100 plus 120 people.
Right.
actually built something for this problem. And it was stuff like we built, like a way to like look at your logs and rerun them and with a new prompt, you know, or whatever. So I think it's just early.
Do you feel like that's like one of the things, if anything was missing from the tooling landscape, does that feel like one of the biggest things?
I think so. I mean, I think it's early, but I think so. I mean, because I can imagine, I mean, of course, there's a lot of people fiddling. I see a lot in the hacker community or Tinkers community of people building things that are like, I'm going to detect and block, you know, racism and not have it be in your production, or privacy stuff. There's lots of hacking in that area. So it's clearly on people's minds. I just think it's early. I mean, I look at some of that stuff. I'm like, yes, but not if it slows the app down.
Right.
I'm trying to get product market fit. I'll do my prompt engineering to protect from bad stuff happening, but I'm not going to slow everything down to ensure it right now.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So I think there's the other thing is that I don't see a lot of, but I think there's opportunity in kind of A/B testing of prompts. I've in my own workflow, I will often think of a prompt that's very specific and write it, but then I'll run it back through and say, hey, make that prompt better.
Right.
And it'll iterate my prompt and oh, that actually is better.
Yeah.
And it performs better. And so this kind of recursive prompt engineering with GPT-4 as your prompt engineer, I think that should clearly be in a framework and a platform to do it automatically. Why wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I could deploy code and be good, and then I should be able to wake up tomorrow morning and the system should tell me, hey, that code you deployed, we just did a bunch of prompt testing overnight on real, data that was in the log we saw. And this is going to perform better. Swap it in. And so yes.
Yeah.
We should have that.
It's like a version of and that's something I'm actually working on, like a post with, like you were saying, that there's Lincoln WhyLabs where you can kind of like do like a shadow deployment, like you're saying, A/B test on something.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have the new model giving a response, you can measure if there's a metric that's really good, whether that's response relevance or something, see if it improves. And then, you can have it recursively improve and look at like 5 different models.
Love it.
Say, this one is better. Do you want to put this in production? And then you can do that, which is kind of cool.
I love it. And I think increasingly important, especially referring back to the Claude versus GPT-4, I would not have anticipated that Claude outperforms GPT-4 for long contexts, 32K, right? And it does for at least that one task, right? But that would imply lots of tasks,
right?
But which tasks? You start to go like, okay, cool.
Right.
I need, if there's a platform that can help me decipher and figure that out and move it to the right model at the right time, why wouldn't that be a good thing? That's a great thing. Because again, like, as long as it's not my manual and engineering effort and the cost is okay and the system's doing it automatically, why wouldn't I want that? So that's interesting. Another one is fine-tuning, reinforcement learning, or just dealing with user feedback, even for my prompt retrieval augmentation feedback into that. How do you do that? I think haven't seen a lot of good on that. I mean, there's the ML, kind of hardcore ML people. I'm an app person, right? Clearly. The ML people will say, I've got solutions for that. We build a model and open, we'll fine tune it. But I haven't seen much for us app people to just use. And when I'm, by the time I've squeezed it through to some UI, I have a little bit of room to get user feedback, a thumbs up, or maybe they make an edit. And I need AI infrastructure, app infrastructure, API infrastructure to push that all the way back somehow so that the model itself improves. Right now, that's a vision that you have to go implement the hard way, I think, very hard way. And if you're using GPT-4, it may be impossible if they haven't opened fine-tuning yet.
Right.
Or it may be possible to hack around it and build something in your own app logic with your database. What data you're feeding in, dynamic prompting. I don't know. That doesn't feel very defensible or long-term scalable.
Yeah.
So that's one that's definitely on my mind. We all want systems that get better over time with their usage. It's unclear how to do that well.
Yeah. Right now, are you mostly using OpenAI models, or have you experimented with? I know you mentioned Claude several times. I don't know if you had any other several ones that you want to almost give a shout out or something that you've enjoyed using, or for people to look at.
Our philosophy is, what is it? No training before product market fit, right? Don't we're monitoring the open source. I'm cheering it on. I'm so glad it's happening. But we are not deploying Llama 2 or any of the ones that came before it, or even doing any fine tuning. I'm watching the community do it through Tinkers. I'm hoping they do. I may do it on my side project stuff for fun, just to be current. But our startup's focus is to rapid experimentation, product market fit, and GPT-4. OpenAI is the best quality.
Yeah,
so that's what matters right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Time back to Blueprint AI. Yeah. I know I talked about it a little bit, and we've talked about a lot about problems or interesting things about putting LLMs in production. I definitely want to open back up to learn more about Blueprint AI. If there's anything else you want to add on to what we already talked about with it.
Sure. Well, I mean, one thing our first kind of experiment, our first product foray into this realm of problems I described in some of those pains, like as a startup, we're approaching that with lots of conversations with practitioners on the business side and engineering side of organizations building software to understand in that broader, problem space, what are the burning fires that we can actually go apply? And then we're building product that we can get initial traction and iterate forward from. That's kind of where we're at. So one of the first products we've built is effectively like a report generator, an AI that will automatically figure out what has happened, what has been built lately, what's going on. So we'll connect to Jira, we'll connect to GitHub, including anything going on in the code, but also with GitHub issues. And we'll look at it 24/7 with infinite amounts of changes in data. Stuff that would never fit even in a 100K prompt. Like we're crunching tons of stuff just to surface for you what happened yesterday, what happened last week, and why should you care? And so we're ingesting and looking at it, not just to summarize recursively all this stuff, but also to figure out, okay, this thing in Jira is related to this conversation over here, and it feels like people may be blocked. That's a hot topic. So we're doing inference on the way in, so that we can then assemble a report in a way that's intelligent and let the right people know what's going on.
That's awesome. Having the context awareness between those apps, just like you're saying a product manager would, but in real time. Yeah.
But never tiring and in a consistent way and at the level of detail that you would really become reliant on. We then took that and packaged it up without any login or authentication to generate reports for some popular open source projects. So we got DuckDB and of course LangChain and Baby AGI and all these projects, right? Where we're just monitoring them 24/7 and doing a daily and weekly report, a real-time report actually on those projects. So the community can discover those and go, oh, this is cool. I want this for my company too. Yeah. And there they can kind of sign up, and if they're qualified with where we do our integrations today, you can actually sign up and use Blueprint. And then internally, like right now, we're doing kind of a major iteration, like a 6-week sprint on something, little more ambitious and interesting regarding the product experience. There will be a lot more interactive that's coming soon.
And if you want to learn more about that later, I'm sure they can sign up to hear about
that. If you go to Blueprint AI and you can go through the flow and tell us about you. And we don't have email marketing set up. You're not going to get spammed, but you will get notified once we have something for you based on the tools that you chose.
Nice. And the reports generated, I know because I've used a little bit. I see them come through Slack, which is great because I'm always in Slack. And that's how I consume them. I don't know if other people, if they get emails or what are the ways people like consuming those reports.
Right now it's Slack. We're actually going to mix that up too.
Nice.
I'm going to offer some more personalization on that.
That's awesome. It makes sense with the open source communities, like you're saying too. It's cool. You have a channel, Blueprint AI or whatever you want to call it, and then every day or when something cool happens, you get a little report about it, and it is really neat just seeing everything tied together, like you're saying. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it's helpful. I would say it's been useful for any team over the size of like 3 even. Like it's remarkable how quick you can get. It becomes a job to report status, even at like 3 people. I use it on my single person projects, honestly, just to go back and go like, what have I been doing lately? It's nice to have, ironically. So,
yeah, that actually seems it'd be great to have in a personal project, kind of like a self-documenting and refreshing you what you're doing. Because I know I'll start a side project, get distracted by other stuff, and come back to it later.
And I'll go, I'll do this for investor updates. I'll go and paste the last month worth of daily updates, right? And with my mega prompt, and then and I'll go write the investor update.
That's awesome.
Does a great job.
I mean, I need to make a mega prompt for myself now. I feel like for all these tasks. I know we're a little bit over time, but one other question I want to ask is: are there any current trends or advancements in the AI space outside of large language models? Because that's what we've already been talking about. That you're particularly excited about?
I mean, I like the media generation stuff. I'm not going to delve into that as a startup personally, but I love the text to speech. If you haven't seen Suno for music generation, it's getting quite good. Even in the last 3 days, they've launched like 2 different modes in their Discord for generating music, and it's fun. It's already at the threshold of I can make little songs and send it to my wife and son, and they'll laugh. Because the songs are sung in a way that's talking about them, and it's like
that's awesome,
incredible. Or my mom, So Runway ML and the video stuff is getting quite good, and that's going to lead to just a wholesale shift in how media is produced and consumed.
Yeah,
I'm a little sad when I think about a year or 2 from now, people are going to create entirely new Beatles songs that are indistinguishable. I know that's sacrilege to even say, but it's coming.
Yeah,
and you've probably seen some of the ones with like Frank Sinatra singing.
Yep.
This
Kanye lyrics or something like that.
And they're good. They're really good. And there's a lot of AI there and a lot of probably hand, production.
Right.
But all that's going to be almost completely automated a year or 2 from now. And it's going to disrupt music itself, which is I have mixed feelings about. Another one I'm
And you had
excited
a whole
about.
panel on it last night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why we did that. Ask Annie, the conversational interfaces where it's voice to voice real time, super interesting. And I would have been personally skeptical about that. I'm not interested in loneliness as a market.
Mhm.
I'm interested in intellectual, helpful. But Ask Annie is super interesting. Pi, I think, is even better. Not many people know this. Pi got ridiculed, when it first came out. Give it another chance. Go in. It's buried, but go in and find the phone call icon. There's a phone call, and it'll go into full live mode, and you're talking to it, and it's got a different personality than GPT-4. And it's just as smart as GPT-4, honestly. Ask it, like, try this. Go in there, download the app, ask it to do a mock interview for a job. Hey, I'm applying for a job. Do a mock interview. Interview me. I want to get some practice. And it's going to think of great interview questions. It's going to listen to your responses. It's going to give you feedback. It's absolutely incredible. Really, that kind of shows this, this mode for education and it's a new kind of software, right? That's a different experience in software that we don't have today.
Yeah.
There's something really interesting there.
I'm really excited on the education space, and I have a background working in ed tech and stuff before.
Yeah.
And I know other people in that field too, with some of the large online education platforms. And I think it's going to be amazing. Because used to be you would pay for, or you still might, like a programming boot camp, to get unstuck really fast, kind of is one of the big things. Like, you have a great mentor. You can help me learn and get unstuck. And now you might have a really good chatbot, maybe with a great personality, even to help you get.
If I wasn't doing Blueprint, I'd probably do something in ed tech, honestly. I've done a lot of side projects that I didn't mention about that with my son, who's 12, like reading comprehension test set generation. So go to Project Gutenberg and just clip a Shakespeare section or a Voyage of the Beagle, Charles Darwin log entry. I'll create a text document of just entries with the tilde between.
Yeah.
And then I wrote a program that ingests these, and with prompting, it'll say, generate a question set in the style of SAT questions, where each question, there's 6 questions per blurb. Each question has 6 multiple choice, thoughtful, and tone, facts, style, questions, analogies, like read them deep, and it'll do a great job. And then I'll take that JSON output, run it back through and say, generate the answer set. Choose the best answer, explain why. For each of the wrong answers, explain why they're not, because some are close. And then I went to GPT-4 and I said, given this data format, generate an interactive app in HTML and JavaScript that creates a UI that you can hover over, click the right answer. If it's right, it turns green, plays a sound, right? Gives the feedback. And he uses that all the time to self-study.
That's awesome.
And I built everything I just described there, I built in less than 1 day. And that's mind-blowing to me, because the GPT-4 did all the coding.
Right.
And it's just incredible. And his reading is he's getting much better. But he's learning at a faster rate on that stuff than in a month or two, more than a year of school.
Wow. That's incredible.
Honestly.
Yeah. I think we're going to see so much more of that with everyone.
It's super powerful.
Getting that instant feedback loop. Is just, you can't quite beat it.
It's some powerful stuff. It's amazing.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Before we go, is there anything else you want to shout out or anything? And we've talked about, you have AI Tinkers going on. You're doing so many cool things, and links to most of those are in the description, like I mentioned too. So
we'll certainly look for AI Tinkers in your city. It's launched in London. It's coming to Berlin. It's launching in New York next week on Tuesday. If any of you in New York, you want to go, definitely check out, register. San Francisco's going strong. Denver's going strong. LA is launching soon.
Nice.
If you're in a city I didn't mention, you'd like to raise your hand as the organizer, let us know. We've got a whole web infrastructure to make it easy to run an AI Tinkers.
It's an awesome platform from what I've seen. And it was a great meetup. And last night you had a really cool panel. And then there were 7 lightning talks, I think, which was awesome, like 5 minutes each. And a lot of them are not very slide based, which is really fun.
We say no slides. I say, if your company name needs to be in your presentation, make it as part of a stack trace.
And I thought that was really fun. I loved, like, someone had their code open right away. They were just literally showing you files. Hey, here's a GitHub. Here's when I run something in the terminal. Things broke as they do during live demos, and it was really fun. I loved it. It was awesome.
There are plenty of meetups for meeting recruiters and VCs and elevator pitches. Our meetup is for active practitioners and for sharing technical problems and solutions.
Yeah, it was great. So definitely check it out if you're, like I said, in one of the existing cities, or if you want to get it going.
Great.
And then thank you so much for being
you.
here. I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream for everyone watching. And hopefully the sound and stuff was pretty good for this first in-person one. And hopefully I'll talk to some of you all later. Have a good day, everyone.